And so the ratings for Doctor Who Season 11 continue to plummet, like a turd hitting toilet water. It's funny how only one critic found the whole season rotten, while 35 others found it fresh. Series 11 Doctor Who proved to be dull, preachy, very forgettable, and an annoying version of its former glory. On this channel, we've gone over in several videos our views based on the episodes and an overall review based on how we felt. In this video, I personally will share my 2 cents on why it failed from an analytical standpoint. Well, the first major issue is the writing. The new showrunner, Chris Chibnall, did not structure the show well. There's no real arcing story that was completed by the finale. The writing was weak, the dialogue was preachy at times and seemingly throughout the entire show, and it had no real substance behind it. The stories were missing the vital ingredients of what made the former Doctor Who's awesome. An example of this is mystery clues throughout the season that would later be put together by the end of it somehow. Just about every episode of every season was canon. The show became more episodic and less continuous or linear. Even South Park has done a good job with this in their recent use of linear story arcing. It's not to say that you can't come in throughout the middle of the season and just enjoy it, but part of what added substance and meat to Doctor Who was that element of an overarching theme or storyline. You guys remember Bad Wolf? There are various story arcs throughout every season. Season 8 was The Master. I mentioned already Bad Wolf from Series 1. The Impossible Girl. Missy. The Master. Torchwood, just so many. The Silence, and even the arc with River Song and her identity. What was the arc in oh, yes, that's right. Women good, men bad. No, but seriously, no one can tell me, and I can't even figure out what the overarching story was for this series, except to be preached to. Also, Chibnall would place in characters that either never came back, weren't fully explored, weren't utilized to their full potential, or when they did reappear, they were just critically unsubstantial, like Two-Face. Now, the next qualm about this season is the characters. The companions themselves are feeble in structure. They're shallow. Ryan's character wasn't developed properly. They began with an issue, which was intriguing because they started off with him, and it just fell off a precipice. Their acting performances left something to be desired. I think Graham was the strongest, if I can say that, out of all of them. And you can tell that he has potential to be a great actor, or he is a great actor. It's just that this role that he was given as a companion, we didn't show much of him, and maybe that was intentional because of what he looks like. He feels like a third wheel. Actually, Yaz feels more like a third wheel, but I can't even say that because most of the time it seems as though she was non-existent. I honestly kept forgetting that she was there. The only reason I remember that Yaz is there is because I know that there are 3 companions. That's the only reason. The major problem is that there were too many companions, which might have caused the show to feel very cluttered, and so they can't focus on much of them. Also, something else that I noticed, we don't get any true showmanship of emotion. It's hard to relate to the characters. The only one that did a decent job was Graham. Even when they started to explore that with him, it kind of fell off abruptly, which detracted from the credibility. The only thing that was explored was a growing relationship between Graham and Ryan, and that was seemingly believable. I actually did believe somewhat him and his grandson actually loved each other and they were really growing close with each other. But them standalone as characters, if they weren't there, if Graham was alone or Ryan was alone, there would really be nothing there. That being said, I did like Graham's character and Ryan's character, but they were still shallow characters. They're like potato chips. You can like and enjoy potato chips, but they're not going to keep you fed. And no matter how much of them you eat, you're always going to want a nice, good place of some other hearty meal. To be totally honest, the best performance of the season goes to King James, played by Alan Cumming. He is a memorable character, and out of all the characters that we've come across in Doctor Who, aside from the companions that are always in our face, he's the one that I remember the most. I don't even really remember much about that episode, but I do remember him. We also didn't get to see much of the TARDIS either, which is in itself an entity, and maybe that's because the design is so goddamn ugly this season. Wonder why the TARDIS is like a green color. Maybe that's because it feels sick to its own stomach. Not even the freaking TARDIS wants to be in the show. All jokes aside, the seemingly non-existence or the absence of the TARDIS also lets us feel further disconnected from the show as a whole. Alright, so let's talk about the villains. Every single villain this season was terrible. I mean, the only one that I found the least bit interesting was the Kerblam episode, the robot, before we found out it was actually a human doing all of it. When I thought it was probably Cybermen or the robots themselves or some kind of AI intelligence that was doing all of it, I was like, yes! Finally! This feels like Doctor Who! But then we found found out it was a little human boy doing all of it, we're like, Jesus Christ, okay. The villains weren't made out as villains, but more so victims of some bigger theme. It's not the spider's fault they kill people. They can't kill the villains because, well, reasons. The universe frog just wants a friend. Evil Caucasian male villain. Bad American Caucasian rich guy that eerily resembles a certain president. Let's not forget that hungry little alien that's also innocent but eating up a ship is gonna kill people. It's just annoying. Just like my freaking stuffy nose. I swear, people are gonna think I've been snorting. It's the show that's making me sick. I'll have you know that before you guys asked me to do another video on this, I was feeling better. Then I started on this video and my nose walls just closed up. Even though Rosa Parks was one of the better episodes, they really dug in hard with that episode vilifying every white male. But Graham is safe though because his wife is black and he's barely outspoken. Who wears the pants in that relationship? Of course, his wife. God forbid he's a strong male character, even though he's adorable. Graham and Ryan are treated like the little boys of the group who have to listen to mommy and big sister. Every male character, it seems, in this series is set out to be, or set out to look very weak. Let's go to the doctor herself, Jodie Whittaker. She was not meant to be this doctor. She wasn't even the doctor. It's not like, I don't even consider her Doctor Who. She failed in her performance. She seemed to have only wanted the role to prove a point that women are so pathetic that they need to be catered to and shoehorned into everything. She doesn't act like Doctor Who. She lacks the power and authority to be the doctor. She looks like she's putting on a show for her kid before he goes to bed, pretending to be Doctor Who. She's not passionate about the show, and you can tell through the show itself. Honestly, she's a plain Jane. She lacks any real character or personality, and her personality itself is very generic. She lacks charisma. She's being used to lecture the audience instead of showing them a good time as doctors of the past used to do. It's just not realistic for the doctor to be lecturing people because the doctor has supposedly been alive so long. Lecturing would just be a waste of time. His whole idea for going around space traveling and dimension traveling is because he wants to have fun, and he wants to have fun with other people, not lecture them and how horrible they are. He's supposed to be wise beyond his years, and even though he's jokingly jovial and playful, that's something that's always stood with the doctor. He's challenged people, he's challenged other people, but the overarching preachy message that is in every single episode was just unbearable to watch. Furthermore, Doctor Who's never really been about that. Changing the dynamics of a show very vastly for people who have been following it since its launch is not a good move. Now, another thing is that the pacing was very off in a lot of the episodes. Sometimes it was too slow, sometimes the transition was horrible, where one thing would be going on and it's like they took a horrible cut or a scene that was supposed to be there, and they just completely did away with it, so it looked very jarring. I will say that they did clean up on this as the episode, or as the season progressed, but it was something that was very different from the older Doctor Who's. The music this season was also very gloomy and tasteless. It didn't match well with the actions of the characters nor the Doctor. Either that, or it was just grossly generic. The entire show, or the entire season, was just a smorgasbord of disaster. It's probably why they're taking off, and hopefully, even though they say they're going to bring back Jodie Whittaker and all the others, hopefully they will change the cast and just start afresh. Take that time off and actually listen to your fans, the true people who have been supporting the show since its launch, and since its relaunch. Anyways, thanks for watching. This has been Alteori. You ask, we answer.